Hello, dear viewer, dear listener. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. I do my best to bring you impactful, cutting-edge information each and every time. I find entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs of all stripes, and I invite them to the studio. This time I have a great entrepreneur. I have a management consultant in Mr. Molosi. Mr. Molosi, welcome to our makeshift studio here in Nonnas.
Thank you very much, sir.
My guest is Kenneth Molosi. Let me give you an opportunity to explain to the viewer your background,
Yes, sir.
what you do, what you stand for.
Okay. By way of background, I'll start first of all with maybe my area of study. I started off in the area of technology, where I spent a good 15 years or so. But then in 2002, I joined KPMG Consulting, the management consulting profession, and I've never really looked back.
Okay.
And the primary reason why I've never looked back is because it's really about problem solving. And actually, I'm saying problem solving because I look at entrepreneurs as well as being problem solvers.
Tell me about management consultancy as a profession.
Okay.
Is it a distinct and separate field?
Yes, it is a distinct field. I think even globally, you can see that it's actually growing. And normally, management consultants will be looking at anything to do with the business. And here you're talking about business strategy. You're talking about areas of operation. You're talking about HR or talent management, as well as technology. And also leadership. I can put leadership in there as well.
Great stuff.
Yes.
We're here to discuss the subject of, we're focusing on youth business during this crisis. And
Yes.
obviously, we're talking about the pandemic and the post-lockdown.
Yes.
How do the youth make sure that they land with both feet
Yes.
and they don't get swiped away
Yes.
with the
tide.
With the tide, yes.
No, very challenging time, and it's not just about the youth businesses, because we've seen even globally some of the bigger entities have had a challenge as well. And I think I'm happy that we're talking about youth business because I feel they possibly are one group that needs a lot of advice. And I'm really willing to, through this interview, to share with them some, I'll call them golden nuggets that they can take away and actually really use.
Yes.
But my observation is that if you look at business in general, if you're talking about entrepreneurs, and these youth businesses are obviously led by entrepreneurs, resilience is a word that comes to mind. And resilience would say, other people would call it grit. And it's actually something that can be developed in human beings. And it's about maybe a habit. It's about having staying power. And basically, even if you are able to, because of the force you bend over, you're able to rebound, okay? And for me, I look at entrepreneurs as being cut from that mold. I don't know an entrepreneur like you, Remo Hobi, who does not have, the badges, if you may. You've been through the mill, but you still have not given up.
Yeah.
So if we can somehow build that into our businesses, I feel, youth business should be able to actually weather the storm.
Which leads me to my next point, developing a thick skin. Is it something that you are born with, or it's something that you can develop with the help of people like you?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. And the way to develop it is, every time you hit a hindrance, you don't actually get demoralized. You might take a moment, and of course the shock might just take a few minutes, but after that, really just gather yourself, pick yourself up and try again. That's how, for me, that's the definition of an entrepreneur. Okay, so, and I've framed for this discussion something that I gleaned from the World Economic Forum. Obviously, World Economic Forum
I think
advises,
the viewer will want to know what the World Economic Forum is.
Oh, okay, yes,
yeah.
of course. The World Economic Forum, and it's good that you're asking that, so that I'm not actually misquoting. The forum engages foremost political, business, cultural, and other leaders globally to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. So in this case, maybe it could be a case of how do SMEs actually survive the pandemic, okay? So for me, I thought it was actually a good source to look at. And here I want to use a framework that they're suggesting of how businesses can actually survive this or become resilient. And it's looking at 5 areas. It's looking at the issue of leadership, okay? So we'll reflect on that. It looks at the issue of revenue. So you're always making sure that during the crisis, money comes in. The third aspect looks at the organization. It has to bounce back. The issue of finances, okay? And then finally, the issue of operations.
Let's take them one at a time.
Yes.
Leadership resilience.
Right.
Is it? How do you develop it? How do you cultivate it? We're in
Right.
the middle of a storm. The government will be saying this month, I believe, we're no longer subsidizing the 50% of salaries and more or less pulling the rug.
Yes.
And we're still in the middle of the pandemic. Here in BDF, there were 19 cases recorded yesterday.
Yes.
So there's that anxiety element. So
Right.
how do you then apply it in practical terms?
In practical terms, and I'm glad that you've mentioned the government issue. As we know, I always say that in our economy, government is a big guy with all the resources. So typically SMEs will do a lot of business with government. But I think the instruction here is, first and foremost, if you want to build leadership resiliency, and leadership is about influence, right?
Yes.
You have to be able to actually influence the relationships that you have, okay? And here I'm talking about the relationships that you have with your customers, right? And the
Yes.
government could fall in there,
Yes.
right? The relationship that you actually have with your suppliers, the relationship that you have with the strategic partners that are helping you to deliver to the client, the relationship that you have with your internal, most important stakeholder, your employees,
Yes,
because you
yes.
need them as you go forward. So in the
Crucial.
case of, yes, exactly. So in terms of building resilience here, my suggestion would be to say, diversify, okay? Even during this crisis, diversify your sources of revenue. So not just government, okay? Look at parastatals, look at the private sector and others. So that if, God forbid, something happens like in this particular case, government says, you know what, we're stopping the subsidy, but at least if you've been serving the parastatal sector and others, possibly those ones are still ticking up. So that could actually be quite helpful. So one of the first golden nuggets I want to share with the entrepreneurs is to say, you know what, make sure that you manage your key stakeholder relations. You're going to need them
Yes.
in good times and also in bad times.
Yes. Yes.
So really that's the first one. Then the second one is about the self, meaning looking at yourself as an individual. Throughout a crisis, you have to look after yourself. So the mental and also the physical well-being of the leader is very, very important. So here I'm talking about making sure that you manage your finances, making sure that you eat right, making sure that you exercise, making sure that you keep in touch with your loved ones and so on and so forth. Secondly, be a knowledge junkie. Read widely about the crisis. Read widely about possibly what is the new, in this case, let's say, for example, use of technology going forward.
Yes.
What does it mean for your business? If you're a restaurant, what does it mean? If you're in
Well, let's talk
construction, what
about
does
the
it mean?
restaurant. I'm not going to.
Yes.
I'm sorry for interrupting a little,
Not a
but I'm running 2 restaurants here,
Yes.
and there's been a dramatic downturn.
Absolutely.
Okay, the numbers have gone down to 10%.
Yes.
The first thing you experience as an entrepreneur is panic. Using that as an example,
Yeah.
what would you advise restaurant owners to get over this glitch,
Okay.
if you like?
Whenever that happens, and it takes me back to that first thing around knowing who's around you as a key stakeholder. I think the first thing to do is whenever you're hit with a crisis, something like this, look at your business model. Okay, and in there you're going to see, for example, the customers that are not going to be buying from you, right? You're going to be looking at the way in which you've been delivering, which is on premise, meaning at a particular site. But one thing that the new normal is actually showing us is that an entity such as this one can deliver to the home. Right?
Home delivery.
That's a real solution. But that can only come out of you understanding the relationship that you have with the different players around you, and then kind of stress testing your model to see, can I continue this way? Clearly, you cannot continue from purely a
Walking
location.
traffic, yes.
So you have to now basically take the business
Yeah.
to where folks are. And in this process, by the way,
Which we're trying to do, by the way, in case
Yes.
the listener is curious.
Excellent.
We do deliver at the offices.
At the offices.
But what you just said about delivering at home, that's
Yes.
a brilliant innovation.
Yes.
Yes.
So around leadership resilience really is around those two things. Make sure the stakeholder management is really, really good. You take care of those relationships because you're going to need them
Yeah.
during a time of crisis. And that is premised on a good relationship having been developed. And secondly, really do not forget yourself. Make
Yeah,
sure that you're in
yeah.
a good mental and
Let's
physical
take the
health.
discussion further, Mr. Molosi. Let's talk about revenue. Let's talk about Zaga.
Yes, money.
Talk about the importance of revenue resilience.
Yes, revenue resilience,
Yes.
in a sense, I kind of covered it, but it's really around diversifying your
Yeah.
customer segments.
Yes.
Don't put all eggs in one basket.
Okay.
I think that is important. During a crisis, we've seen certain customer segments will stop buying from you, but if you've got a diversified portfolio of customers, others will continue to buy from you.
What about scaling down? I mean,
Yes.
we we've all call it fancy words like right sizing, downsizing, but what we actually mean is retrenchment.
Yes.
We know here in Botswana that during the state of emergency, you are prohibited from retrenching.
Yes.
But state of emergency is ending soon.
Yes.
Is it something that you'd advise some entrepreneurs to continue, to consider, to consider retrenching?
No, I wouldn't say that, because there are other options before you retrench. You can do things like, guys, can we go on half pay? And maybe me as a leader. Kind of leadership is about you doing things that people are going to observe and say, yes, indeed, we're in good company. You can even say as a leader, you know what, for me, I'm going to actually forgo my salary. For the good of everybody, and all of you maybe half salary. Guys, we're riding this thing together.
Yes.
I think that there are always those options. For me, I always say that I'm troubled by people who immediately think of retrenching. I really am. And again, you can think like that if you don't understand the value of creating a job. For people to fend for themselves, it's tough out there, right? But at the end of the day, people are reasonable. If you say, guys, we're going on half pay, and then maybe quarter pay, and then no pay, and all of us are feeling the pain, I think that's a more elegant solution.
There's a point which you raised as we prep for this show, which is to say, focus on the real need of your product or service.
Yes.
In other words, customers who really need your product or service.
Absolutely, yes.
How do you, in practical ways, actually do that?
Okay.
What is it, an exercise? Is it a system?
No, I think it's also by observation. It also goes back in a sense, maybe to knowing your stakeholders, and some of them are your customers.
Yes.
If you're serving people, I would imagine if you're a good entrepreneur, and I want to give free advice here, if you're able to actually provide a product or a service that fulfills a genuine human need, you'll be in business for life. People who got needs because it's emotional will connect with you forever. So it doesn't become a mystery. You would have actually invested in it as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, in terms of understanding what makes people come to black. Okay, what is it? But most of us as SMEs actually don't do that. And how do you gather that information? You ask them. Why do you keep on? And your team members can do the same. You collect that information. So next time when it comes to people who, if you want to decipher who really needs your product or service, it is not a mystery.
Okay.
Yeah, you actually know it. So sometimes I would advise that invest quite a bit of time in terms of understanding.
So it really requires you accumulating data and information on your customers.
Absolutely. And we're at the stage where we need to. So maybe COVID has taught us that we need information, Bahaj. We need to start moving in a direction where we manage our businesses based on data.
Yeah. Let's talk about organizational resilience, which is, I think, is one of the points which come out of the World Economic Forum recommendation.
Right.
What's the definition for that term? Sounds a bit fancy. And how does it apply in practical terms? Okay,
organizational resilience, I think, simply put, this organization, your company, your business is an organization. Okay, yeah, it's made up of different attributes. You'd obviously have your employees internally, you've got the infrastructure, et cetera, right? So you need this organization to bounce back. Unless maybe you've declared that it's dead.
Absolutely.
Okay, so and it's important to actually use a crisis maybe to build that resilience so that next time it shows up, you are ready. Okay, so in this particular case, I mean, I can give by way of an example what we did. We basically managed our way through the crisis using scenarios. So
scenario planning.
Yeah, scenario planning. And basic, where we basically said, okay, first scenario, there could be a situation where there's no new business coming in. Or the business that we have, the customers, for whatever reason, actually choose not to do business with us because maybe they're nervous about, because these are health issues.
Yes.
They don't want you on site. And as a management consultancy, normally we are actually at the client side. And for us, they clearly said no interaction.
Zero interaction.
Zero interaction. So what do you do?
No workshops, no, no kind of meetings where more than 20 people are involved.
Yeah. So we said in that situation, okay, what do you do? Maybe we start to look at other sources of income. For example, online learning. We started recording just like you're doing here.
Yes.
Online courses. So that's another way in which you could actually manage the situation. So scenarios, that was one scenario. Second scenario.
And then you share them in the form of what? Subscriptions?
Yes. Then the intention is to share them in the form of subscriptions.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. And actually very soon we're going to do one with one of the clients as well. Okay. In the past there was never a situation. People were never comfortable with that sort of thing. But we had to pivot in that way. But it was based on that first scenario. Secondly, if maybe someone actually had COVID-19 in the country, because remember those were early days, right?
Yeah.
And government maybe declared a lockdown.
What
do we do?
We've had our second death.
Yes.
Read ahead. Yeah.
Yes. What do you do? If maybe government says lockdown, can guys work from home? So we had to say, you know what, we have to be prepared in terms of the infrastructure that they'll need to be able to work from home.
Does it require you buying more laptops to facilitate Zoom conferencing?
No, the laptops they had, but we had to obviously purchase the modems that will allow them to connect for each one.
Okay.
And this thing is almost like a utility. The employees need it. It's almost like it's a must-have.
It's a must-have, yeah.
It's part and parcel of what you actually would
It's a basic need.
It's a basic need. It's like water that we actually drink. And then the third scenario was around, what if somebody presented with COVID-19 within the office itself? So even for that one,
God forbid.
Exactly. Okay, and we said, for example, all employees will have to undertake mandatory testing, and then we'll follow the health protocols that are set in the country. So for each scenario, it helped us to actually ride through
Can you force somebody, I'm asking now as a lawyer, can you force somebody to take a test if they don't want?
No, I think the way we fashioned it, we said, let's follow the established health protocols for the country.
Yeah,
because that's where we kind of look to for guidance.
Okay.
Yeah. But forcing, that's not really what we do. And my colleague is here, she knows. You know, and a lot of this, by the way, even the scenarios, the team actually had a hand in it. We sat and we talked to them. So really under this one
So
around...
there's a consensus approach.
Consensus approach. Okay. Why? Because you need this team when you rebound.
You need the buy-in.
Yeah, first of all, you need to keep them. And then secondly, you need to rebound. So for me, the two golden nuggets coming out of this thing around organizational resilience.
I like the part when you talk about team cohesion.
Yes.
And the need to communicate bad news with empathy.
With empathy, yes.
Can you speak a bit more on that? Because I think that is something that we need to learn about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think for this one, really it's about communicating to staff openly, honestly, and opening the channels of communication through whatever medium, right? And when I say with empathy, because you're putting yourself in another person's shoes. Some of them were genuinely scared when we started this process. They didn't want to be at the office. So we had to obviously sometimes take them one-on-one. But I think meeting as a team and making sure that everybody is comfortable helped us a lot. So certainly I think during a crisis for entrepreneurs, communicate with your staff and take them along with you. And again, put yourself in another person's shoes so that, clearly you're able to kind of feel what they're feeling.
Yeah.
Then that way together you can come up with a solution. And then the other thing is obviously keeping the team together through the crisis, because we're going to rise and fall as a team.
Yes.
Okay? So we're going through this crisis together. What that tends to do is to bind you. Okay? It really bonds you and you come out of this a lot stronger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, finance resilience. We talked earlier about revenue resilience. What is the real distinction, revenue and finance resilience?
Revenue, I was just trying to point to the fact that the petrol needs to still come in.
Yeah, indeed.
That's on that part. But then this financial resilience is really around just from even a system point of view. For example, cash flow management.
Yes.
For any business, without cash, you're finished and dead in the water.
You are.
So that one is just a simple golden nugget to say during this time, you want to preserve cash. Okay, so advice for entrepreneurs, preserve cash at this time. So things that are not necessary to spend time, meaning nice to haves, basically cut them out. Things like no luxuries during this time. Go to bare bones. Okay, and again, when you're talking obviously about
no fancy purchases,
fancy purchases, even things like to staff, they might be disappointed initially, but you tell them that this time no bonuses. We're going to delay those. Why? Because we're trying to preserve cash.
Can you believe it? I've had some employees asking for increments
during this time. That's another thing. You talk very openly, yes. And again, it's a discussion. It's a discussion. You bring them in and you basically tell them, guys, constantly, this is what we're going to be doing, and this is why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we want to preserve everybody's employment, right?
Yeah.
But the minute we start doing crazy things at a time when we need the cash, we're basically just, drying up the coffers.
You've made a point that we have to generate cash without going to the bank.
Oh, yes.
How do you do that?
Okay. First and foremost, any business would always have customers who owe them. Okay, so you go and collect it as quickly as you can. That's number one. So that would be generation of some cash. Secondly, there are certain operational costs, rent and all these things. You basically go to those suppliers and you tell them you're delaying the payment.
You think the landlord will listen?
You're hoping.
Yeah.
In some cases, some people were able to actually get away with maybe half payment.
Yeah.
Okay, so you try whatever you can, working with your suppliers, with your customers, to make sure that they give you a break.
Speaking on behalf of landlords
Yes.
such as myself, we're going to say the bank wants its money. I'm answerable to the bank. I'm not going to give you any.
Okay, but
Any
that's,
break.
yes, but that sort of thing normally would be driven by you not having invested. You know those relationships I was talking about?
Yeah.
If you've invested in a relationship, a supplier is willing to talk to you if you've been really frequent in terms of, and consistent in terms of payment, let's say.
Okay.
Not where you've abused the landlord.
Okay, that's
and
true.
there's distrust. Okay? You see where it's important.
Okay.
So it's important to invest in those relationships in that way, even through conduct. So when I come to Mogobe now, he knows that out of all these people, we've got a lot of maybe tenants, but these 10 are special ones because they always pay. These ones I can maybe work out something with them.
Understanding your finances and developing a dashboard
Yes.
of key metrics that determine the financial health of your company.
Absolutely. At any time.
Break it down.
Okay.
Simple English.
Yeah, simple English would say, if you're not from a finance background, you'd sit with your accountant or financial advisor. And you basically say to them that looking at my business, and you are running a restaurant, what are the 5 key metrics that can actually tell me how my business is doing? So things like maybe revenue. You want to see the trend as you go through the crisis in terms of how it's sitting, maybe the costs as well. But if you're able to look at those 2, then certainly you should be able to look at issues of profitability, okay? And you know, the cash position and so forth. So you can actually just choose 5 very straightforward metrics that, you know, the volume of traffic of people coming in.
Yeah.
Because for you as a restaurant is important. Yeah, right. Even as you ramp up on the other side in terms of delivery,
Yeah.
you are more interested also in that, in
Yeah.
terms of the uptake of your products as you serve.
Okay. I
Yeah.
want us to be a bit practical here and deal with the question of negotiating credit terms.
Yes.
A lot of young entrepreneurs don't know how to negotiate credit terms or favorable credit terms.
Yes.
How would you propose they go about that process?
Okay. I'm going to sound like a broken record because
Yes.
again, remember if you come in touch with a supplier, okay, where later on you could come back for credit terms.
Yeah.
They might say, and this is conduct, normal conduct, they'll say, no, cash up front and I give you whatever, the
Yes.
product. I get it.
Yes.
That's a normal conduct. We see it a lot here.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
We even see it with multinationals kind of, you know, sticking it to the entrepreneurs on the other side as well.
Yeah.
In terms of not allowing them to be given a
So
deposit.
take it or leave it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, my suggestion would be to say, no, first start that relationship, yes. But as time goes on, especially based on your consistency in terms of payment, because you have to respect the relationship.
Yeah.
That's the only time that during a crisis you can come back and negotiate.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
see what I mean?
Yeah.
So normally people don't just bend over backwards and accommodate you
No.
when you have not invested in a relationship.
Okay.
You know, investing in a relationship with a supplier, no matter
Yeah.
big or small, it means you have to actually have a plan, constant checking on them, calling them, you know, even being interested in whatever the
Yeah.
new products that are coming up and so on and so forth. But chiefly on the business side is you being consistent in terms of payment.
I think also just to add on to that, if you approach most creditors in this COVID environment
Yes.
and tell them, look, I used to pay you in 30, 60 days.
Yes.
Can you extend it to 90 days?
Yes.
Can you extend it to 120 days?
Yes.
If they value your business, they should be flexible
They
enough.
will be able to do that. And the
Yeah.
minute they grant you that, by the way, from a cash flow perspective, you are keeping that money inside longer. I get it? So it can work for you.
Yeah.
For things like paying your employees,
Yeah.
for example.
I like your expression when you say you should unashamedly request
Yes,
longer payment terms.
you should, yeah.
Let's deal with the psychological aspect, the shame part.
Yes.
Why do you think Botswana are normally so reluctant to negotiate, whereas other nations are very, very...
Yeah, I think part of it because I'm a Botswana
Because when you
as
say
well.
unashamedly, I said
Yeah.
that could typical...
No, as a
background,
Botswana,
yeah.
I mean, I'm a Botswana as well. It comes from partly from our culture, because normally we are discouraged from actually being forceful. But in the business realm, I think this is what I want to say to entrepreneurs. In the business realm, it's actually a cutthroat world. So I think if you choose to be an entrepreneur, it's important that you bring that along with you. Yeah, because once you start negotiating, you can't be softy.
No.
Okay?
No.
So it's important for you to ask. And another thing is that even from the Bible, ask and it shall be given.
Yeah, seek and you shall find.
Seek and you shall find.
Knock and it shall be opened unto you.
So sometimes imagine you've
I
been
didn't
trading.
know that.
You've been trading with somebody.
Matthew 7:7.
You know? I mean, imagine you've been actually working with a supplier for 5 years and then COVID hits, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, but you've been paying them consistently. The fact that you have not asked for better terms in that time is not their fault. It's actually your fault. Because you don't understand what that does for you. In good times or in bad times, cash flow management is important. And getting good, favorable terms for entrepreneurs, youth businesses, that really is important. Okay, but invest in the relationship.
Okay, I want you, Molosi, since I have you here, to look at the environment. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much fear. There's so much about what's going to happen.
Yes.
I know you don't have a crystal ball, but are you able to see how this situation around the COVID is likely to pan out during your scenario planning?
Yes.
Is there any indication whether we're going to be facing the threats of lockdowns intermittently for the next 6 months and the next 2 years?
Yeah.
Have you, in your profession, had a chance to engage in sort of large-scale scenario planning like that? To be able
No, we
to form a
haven't, but I've thought about it.
Yes.
I've thought about it to say that even for our country, sometimes people always say that Botswana needs, I don't know, a catastrophe of some sort, and then we can come out of the other side a bit better. I'm seeing some green shoots. For example, things like, I think it scares people to death now that it's possible that if borders are closed and South Africa says, you know what, guys, we're keeping all this food for ourselves. We might starve over here.
Yeah.
So things like the volume that I hear around agriculture, the observation of even some people who are in the tech field who decided during the crisis or during the lockdown even, to start thinking about actually planting something so they can reap in a few months and actually sell. For me, it's telling me that it's changed the behavior. So what do I see post all of this? I think it's a change in behavior, which could be beneficial for this country. Okay. And I put Botswana in two camps. There are those who, no matter what happens, they'll never change. Okay? They want to just stay that way. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay? But then there's this other new crop that basically sees that, you know what? We honestly do not want to be where we are, because if we are not careful, we might go in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So, and the youth businesses in particular, I see that they're a lot more driven.
Okay.
So, again, with this country, I think what is going to give us the uplift, honestly, is the energy of the youth.
Yeah. Palane. Okay, yes. Absolutely. Let's touch on one of the last items on our list, which is operations resilience. Yeah. Describe that and talk to the young entrepreneur out there.
Yes.
How do they apply that in actual terms?
Okay. Your company, right? And you basically are saying, simply put, the things that make your business tick will be the different activities or processes that you drive. It will be the different resources that you use to drive those processes. And resources, I'm talking about the human capital, people. I'm talking about the infrastructure where you're operating, for example, or the machines that you use. I'm talking about the inventory maybe that you're keeping. And then on top of that, you've got suppliers and you've got partners who are actually helping you to deliver.
Yeah.
And they're helping you to deliver to the customer.
Yeah.
Okay, so the operational aspect that I'm talking about is actually that. So again, looking at operations, you have to make sure that you understand those things that contribute to the value that you give to the customer, and ring fence those. So during this time, crisis or no crisis, write them down, understand the impact that they're having in terms of your operations, and because even during the crisis, if they're not strong, you possibly will not survive the crisis. So for me, I'd say, simply put, that's what I'm looking at here.
I like the fact that you have applied your mind to the current situation.
Yes, sir.
Where one of the biggest surprises, you say, is the current interruption.
Yes.
Or the current revelation, I would say, of the fragility of the supply chains.
Absolutely.
We can no longer get things from China when we want them.
Yes.
We can no longer order from Amazon or whatever and get in the time that you want it.
Yes.
So, you talk about the importance of mapping out.
Yes.
Mapping out the supply chain in terms of your access to raw materials.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Absolutely. And again, this is something that we see bigger companies doing, but smaller companies don't do. Even something as simple as keeping an updated contact list of your suppliers. If you're not in constant contact with your suppliers, obviously you'd miss it even when the information changes.
Yes, yes.
But I think in this particular case, for me, big aha moment is to say maybe a time has come for Botswana or businesses in Botswana to start looking at exploring local sources of inputs. Okay? Some people used to call it nearshoring, where maybe let's say you're taking them from South Africa, but this one now is next shoring, meaning literally next door.
Yeah, like producing toothpicks, for
Absolutely.
instance. Just going to a tree and finding a way to...
Yes, and in us doing this, we're insulating ourselves from future, global, because they're guaranteed to happen again, okay?
Yes,
This is just maybe a start.
Yes.
So we have to build our business to be resilient because it's coming again, okay? So in this case, I would say, local supply chain certainly, but again, that's where even issues of policy, meaning from a government level, also comes in. Initiatives that maybe the likes of CEDA have driven, because CEDA, for example, has selected manufacturing.
It's one of the priority areas,
yes,
construction,
exactly.
manufacturing,
Absolutely.
one or two others.
So just like an orchestra, all of these have to be playing the tune in such a way that the melody is sweet. It's not just about entrepreneurs, but for an entrepreneur, because you're a problem solver, you find yourself in this situation. Is it possible for you to even maybe start manufacturing yourself? Yeah. So that's another way to actually look at it. Remember, you're a problem solver. You're not going to sit on your hands when things are going wrong.
Okay.
So, certainly,
identify your critical resources that are necessary to drive operations and deliver it to the customer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And these ones, simply put, I would say it's people, your employees, right? It's the facilities that you need or infrastructure. It's the key business processes that you use to deliver to the customer. Is any inventory, if you hold any inventory that you obviously need to manage. Is any specialist equipment that you use. I work with people in mining, for example, okay? But that equipment is important. It has to always be in tip-top shape. So things like maintenance are important. IT resources. We're in the new normal actually now, where our IT resources, honestly, again, is not a nice to have, it's a must have. So whichever tools of the trade you're going to use. Remember, around IT resources as well, it could be related to even the software that you use.
Absolutely.
I mean, we use WhatsApp a lot. Whenever we set up a project, whoever's in the project is actually put in a group. You know what that does for comms? It helps. Hey, every time, it's immediate. It's immediate communication.
Now, Mr. Molosi, as we conclude,
yes, sir.
I want you to shamelessly plug your organization. I want you to tell the entrepreneur what you offer, what you can do, maybe even giving examples. If, I take it, some of your customers want mind. You can say, I've done X, Y, and Z for so and so.
Yes.
No,
certainly.
Go ahead.
No, I think for us, honestly, given this podium, certainly we would like to share with the entrepreneur out there that we're embarking on actually a program to assist or work with young entrepreneurs to help them to really, run resilient businesses, if I may put it that way, okay? To build their businesses to last, to see the opportunities that Botswana actually creates, or even beyond Botswana. I've always said, maybe use Botswana as a nice training ground or even a test case for your idea. And once you've cracked it and you feel you're world-class, test it against other markets. And now in the age of digital technology, being able to service from here, explore such as well. So I still feel that the opportunities are there because sometimes people don't necessarily see them. So we're hoping that working with the entrepreneurs, even at this time, we do have services to help with recovery. We've got services that can help them to kind of insulate themselves when the next crisis actually comes. And I still believe that whatever I've shared with you here today is relevant for SMEs. And we present it in such a way that it's easy to digest. If you've noticed, I could have chosen to use words like business continuity planning because that's what we've been talking about here. But I chose not to. Why? Because it's important that when you communicate, people understand. So for us, it's actually a calling, we believe. It's actually a passion. And elsewhere, we facilitate to help SMEs to grow. So we would like to take some of that knowledge now and stress test it within Botswana. But we do work in Botswana, South Africa, and Namibia in the region.
With corporates, with
yes,
SMEs.
With corporates, we work with corporates. But I feel now that corporates don't need us as much as these ones. Yeah, because any economy is driven by SMEs. So imagine if we build resilient SMEs that are here for a long time. It means we can create jobs, right? Yeah, just think about it.
And the growth is inevitable.
Growth is inevitable.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Now, how do we access you in terms of your location, in terms of your contacts?
Yes.
Can you share that with the viewer?
No, definitely. We are located in the KPMG building. We don't mind plugging them because these are some of our partners sometimes, even in the work that we do. In terms of our origin, that's where we come from. But we are there as EOH Consulting. We're on the first floor. And you should be able to contact us through the phone. It's 319-1039. And also you can send a message to info@eoh.co.bw.
All right.
Okay.
As we part with the listener, one concluding, powerful, positive, inspiring message, one takeaway. What can you come up with?
Develop a thick skin, resilience, and also maybe just 3 points. The components that I've talked about in terms of where you can build resilience will certainly help you to be, quite resilient as a business. But I think it requires, for me, discipline. Okay, we're in this thing for the long haul. All right. The second golden nugget for me would be to say, whenever you think of a business, think around the genuine human need that you're servicing. Then you'll have a customer for life. And then thirdly, the things that I've talked about are not a nice to have, they are a must have. So that you insulate yourself from the next crisis, which is guaranteed to come. So I'm hoping that if you're able to actually put this to the test in your own business, and please record this stuff. It's not something you talk about, it's things that should be written somewhere. And for example, if you say suppliers, you should have a list of the suppliers with their contact details, updated, and you with a plan to actually be in touch with them constantly.
Absolutely.
So, because you're going to need them when the crisis hits.
It remains for me, Mr. Kenneth Molosi, to express my appreciation for you.
Yes, sir.
To express my thanks for honoring our invitation, and to inform you that we appreciate what you're doing.
Yes,
The field of management consultancy is a very important field for the country.
absolutely.
Keep on what you're doing. We really, really need more of people like yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mogobe. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.